Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Ted Cruz from Texas.
Anytime. Reach out and let's make it happen. Good to see you. Good to see you. Excellent. Muy bien, usted. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Wow. God bless the Tea Party. But I'm a little bit confused. I could have sworn I read in the New York Times that the Tea Party was dead. I can hear several people in the back going, "We knew there was something about it. He's reading the New York Times." That's a dangerous admission. I apologize for that failing on my part. What a fantastic privilege to be with you. What an amazing 5 years it's been. 5 years ago, President Obama was newly elected. We were seeing the explosion of government power, and we were seeing all of the voices telling the American people, abandon hope, all ye who enter here. The country is now a liberal, progressive utopia, and the American people have no interest in changing. And then the Tea Party rocketed into existence, starting with one rant on television. Millions of men and women rose up. Now think for a second what an extraordinary development that is. I think the Tea Party is the most exciting political development in decades in this country. And all of you know, look, the great thing about the Tea Party is it arose from the people. It's not top down, which, by the way, confuses the heck out of politicians. There's a game in Washington. It's not complicated. If there's any new force in town, you just go and take whoever the poobah is, and you co-opt them. It's a game Washington is very, very good at. The fantastic thing about the Tea Party, look, I remember running for office in 2011, 2012 in Texas. And people ask, well, how do you get Tea Party support? You know, who do I go to see? And the simple truth, as you know, look, in the state of Texas, there are several hundred Tea Party leaders. You want to get Tea Party support? You know what? You're going to put some miles on your car. You're going to drive from town to town, and you're going to sit down in a lot of IHOPs. You're going to sit down in a lot of VFW halls, and you're going to answer questions. You're not going to give a canned stump speech and walk away, because if you do that, you're done. Look, the great thing about the Tea Party is it's citizens who view it, if they've got a candidate who's running, they view it as a job interview, which is exactly what it is. And you look at the movement, the organic movement that arose, and what are the issues? What are the issues that drive the Tea Party? Now, if you listen to the mainstream media, they always manage, if there's a rally with 5,000 or 10,000 people, they find the one guy in the back with a tinfoil hat. And that's what everyone's for. And you know, look, I agree, Martians reading our brainwaves would be a bad thing. But I'm going to suggest maybe the Tea Party is about something a little more fundamental. Tea Party is about a couple of very simple principles. Number one, liberty. Free market principles. Limited government. Not bankrupting our kids and grandkids. And getting back to the Constitution of the United States of America. Hands down, the most exciting and the most important thing that has happened in politics in recent years has been the rise of the grassroots. Has been the rise of millions of Americans standing up saying, we're going to hold Washington accountable. We're going to get back to the principles that made America the greatest nation in the history of the world. And let me tell you, look, it is easy at times to look at the expansion of government power, at the lawlessness, and to be demoralized. I want to tell you more than anything else, I want to share a word of encouragement. I am hopeful, I am optimistic, I am filled with the promise that we're going to turn this country around because there is a grassroots revolution sweeping this country. You know, if you think about last year and the fights in the Senate, I was very proud that the first time I had the chance to speak on the Senate floor was standing side by side with my friend Senator Rand Paul and his epic filibuster on drones. Now, when Rand started that filibuster, most of our colleagues had no idea what he was talking about. And then what happened? That's true. Then what happened is the American people started speaking up. Twitter blew up. People began saying, stand for our constitutional rights. And I got to tell you, as the night went on, it got to be past dinner time. A number of senators had gone home and had dinner, may have gone to bed, and their staffs picked up the phone and said, get back to the Senate floor. And you'd see somewhat rumpled senators walking on the Senate floor going, the Tweety thing is happening. And as a result of the American people standing up, the next day, President Obama was forced to do what he'd refused to do for 3 consecutive weeks, which was to admit in writing that the U.S. Constitution limits the authority to target U.S. citizens. That was extraordinary, and it came from the people. I got to say, it started to make politicians in Washington very, very nervous. They didn't quite know what to make of it, and then you think of the next big fight we had last year, which was the fight over guns. After the tragic shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, the President of the United States had an opportunity to do the right thing. He could have come out and said, let's go after violent criminals. Let's come down on them like a ton of bricks. But he didn't do that. Instead, he used it as an excuse to try to go after the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. And I have to tell you, in Washington, conventional wisdom following that tragic shooting was that this was unstoppable. First several Senate lunches we had, everyone was sitting around going, the momentum is all with the president. There's nothing we can do. We need to get out of the way. And then something incredible happened. The grassroots began standing up. The Tweety thing. And even better, senators went home to their home states on recess. And when they got there, y'all showed up. And they started seeing men and women from their states saying, stand up and defend our Second Amendment rights. Millions of Americans lit up the phones. And when it came time for a vote, every single proposal of President Obama's that would have undermined the Second Amendment was voted down on the Senate floor. That was y'all's victory. It was the power of the grassroots. And I'll tell you, the most dramatic demonstration of it last year was the battle over stopping the disaster that is Obamacare. Now, If you listen to the media, if you listen to the Democrats, although I repeat myself, they will say the fight to stop Obamacare did not succeed. Really? You know what? I'm a big believer that the proof is in the pudding. Last fall, millions of Americans rose up and said, stop the disaster that is Obamacare. Over 2 million Americans signed a national petition and melted down the phone lines in Washington, D.C. I had one of my colleagues in a closed-door meeting say, literally trembling, my constituents keep calling me. I'll confess it's one of the few times in Washington I found myself speechless. As a result of millions of Americans rising up, together we elevated the national debate of the incredible harms Obamacare is visiting on millions of Americans. There is no more destructive law that has caused millions of Americans to lose their jobs, to be forced into part-time work, to lose their health care. And the media says it wasn't successful. Well, where are we now? Right now, President Obama is at his lowest approval rating he's ever been since the day he was elected in office. Right now, Obamacare is at its lowest approval rating it's ever been since the day it was signed into law. It has plummeted in popularity among young people. It has plummeted in popularity among Hispanics. It has plummeted in popularity among independents. Heck, it has plummeted in popularity among Democrats. They are running fast. You know, I think it is often a good barometer of where the country is to watch the late-night comics. Last fall, Jay Leno said, President Obama called me. He said, Jay, if you like your job, you can keep it. A few weeks later, Leno went back to the same theme. He said, holidays are coming up. Thanksgiving. You know, the first Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims said to the Indians, if you like your land, you can keep it. As a result of millions of Americans rising up, we are making the case to the American people. And let me tell you right now, I am absolutely convinced we are going to repeal every single word of Obamacare. That is because of you. There is nothing that scares politicians more than the men and women gathered in this room. But let me say this, liberty is never safer than when politicians are terrified. I want to close with a final word of encouragement. The scriptures tell us there's nothing new under the sun. And I'm convinced where we are right now is very, very much like the late 1970s. The late 1970s, we had Jimmy Carter in the White House with the same failed economic policies. By the way, if there is one person in this country who is thrilled at how badly President Obama is doing, it's Jimmy Carter. You had the same out-of-control spending and taxes and regulation, and it produced the same stagnation and economic misery. You had the same feckless foreign policy, cowering to the nation of Iran, making the world a more dangerous place and endangering our national security. You had the President of the United States come on television and say to America, we've got to accept malaise and put on a sweater. And then something amazing began to happen in the late 1970s. A grassroots movement began of millions of men and women all across the country that began standing up and became the Reagan Revolution. There are a lot of women and men in this room that bear the stripes from that fight. And all across this country, people said, look, what we're doing isn't working. Let's get back to the principles that made this country strong. One of the great blessings of having the opportunity to represent the great state of Texas in the Senate is that I have the opportunity to travel the state of Texas, to travel the country, and let me tell you, the same grassroots movement, the same awakening is happening all over again. The single most common thing I hear is men and women come up to me, they put their hand on my shoulder, they look me in the eyes, they say, Ted, I'm scared. I'm scared for this country. We're bankrupting this country. My kids and grandkids, if we keep going, are not going to have the freedom and opportunity we have been blessed to have. And let me tell you, it is because of those men and women, it is because of the men and women in this room that we're going to turn things around. The answers will not come from Washington. The only place they can come from is the American people. And so I want to encourage you, take all of the passion and love you have for liberty and double and redouble it. Because the time has never been greater and the American people are waking up in overwhelming numbers. Together, what we've got to do is make D.C. listen. And I will tell you, it is the singular honor of my life to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with each of you, fighting to bring back free market principles, to bring back liberty, to bring back the constitutional protections that have made the United States the greatest nation in the history of the world. That's what we're fighting for. This is a room full of patriots, and I am honored to stand with you. God bless you.